All right, you're with the We the Women Global Townhall, and I don't think there's anyone who hasn't seen the Shark Tank Indian version. If I had to describe the women we see on this show, and in fact, even other women who are like looking to make a mark in a world that continues to be dominated by men, I would say that these are women who, yes, swim with the sharks, but also run with the wolves. And that is, of course, a metaphor for their boldness and for their determination and for their stubborn insistence on finding their individual journeys. So let's introduce our sharks today, and also a young girl they've helped, and other women who are inspired by them when it comes to female entrepreneurship. First, I have to profusely apologize. I know we've kept you waiting. You will, I hope, pardon us. This is a 10-hour live stream, so there is a little bit of up and down in the time calculation. I know you're all terribly busy women, so I'm sorry, because time is money, as they say. All right, let's introduce our guests on this panel. We're joined by Ghazal, Alagh and Vineeta Singh, and we recognize both of you from that show. But of course, you're extremely successful businesswomen in your own right, and you've made extremely successful companies from the germ of an idea. Vineeta Singh is the founder and CEO of Sugar Cosmetics. Ghazal Alagh is, of course, the founder of Mamaearth. And we're also joined by Tanuja Gomes, who used to be a banker till she actually moved into an entrepreneurship that involved music, and we'll hear more about that in a moment. And finally, Anoushka Jolly, who's a school student who was on the program and impressed Ghazal and Vineeta among other judges and managed to go away with 50 lakh rupees. I've got to learn from Anoushka on how to ask for money. But let's get started with what is the spirit that actually unites all of you with all your varied backgrounds and your varied interests? Vineeta, I'll start with you. You know, you have said that you were 17 when you knew that you wanted to be an entrepreneur, and you had IIT and IIM. You were offered like a fat, cushy job, a 1 crore salary, and you said no to it. Who says no to a 1 crore cushy salaried job? Where did that appetite from risk come so early?
I think the answer to that is very stupid 23-year-olds who have just so overconfident about what they can build in their lives. I often share this story that, you know, when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I really read all the books of Steve Jobs and Richard Branson, and I thought I was going to be exactly like them. And then, of course, after 10, 12 years of fumbling my way around and failing and getting multiple rejections, my first disappointing realization was that I am no Steve Jobs or Richard Branson. And I really had these self-doubts that, you know, was I ever meant to be an entrepreneur? Probably entrepreneurs are meant to be a certain way in terms of just geniuses, visionary, ability to have like these billion-dollar ideas and like take like large number of people along with them. But then I realized that over the last 5 to 6 years that I think entrepreneurs, and Shark Tank has made us realize that even more entrepreneurs come in all shapes and sizes and genders. You just have to figure out what is it that's really you are meant to build. And when you do that, it's probably one of the most fun careers in the world, because you get to work on new stuff every single day. You get to inspire, you get to be a role model for both, in Ghazal and my case, thousands of women who work for us. And I feel that, Shark Tank also made us realize that it's a great platform to pay it forward, because both of us come from a very, very investing background where we've raised money from venture capitalists who hardly ever fund women-run organizations. But both of us, Shark Tank put 3 out of 7 women on that panel, and almost 48% of the money actually ended up going to women. So very proud of this whole movement that is being led by young entrepreneurs like Anoushka. We are just there to pay it forward as much as we can.
Well, I always say that the defining spirit of this property, this platform, We the Women, is audacity. And I think that, Vineeta, in some ways, your journey, turning down that cushy, salaried, predictable, safe job has been about audacity. Ghazal, you discovered or rather worked on or built on the idea of Mamaearth while looking for chemical-free products for your newborn. So it came from a personal place, and now it's become a massively successful brand. What is that one sort of mantra that you would be able to share today, both from what you've learned from your own journey and what you've unlearned? What is it that they don't teach you at business school effectively?
So, Barkha, I don't honestly know what they teach in business school because I haven't been to one. You
Entrepreneurship is
know,
the best business school.
And there's Vineeta by
yeah,
contrast, who still is making her own rules. But yeah, of course, I meant it metaphorically. I know you haven't been to business
yeah,
school,
yeah.
but what I mean is,
So,
from your life experience, what have you learned and unlearned?
so I think one thing that is really, really important for me is to enjoy what I'm doing at that point in time. And then, put in all your effort to just be the best at that. That's one of the mantras that I've lived by till date. I started working at the age of 18. I was the youngest girl in my school at that point of time who started earning money for herself or was independent. After that, I started my first venture. Then I learned art from New York Academy of Arts. I came back, I exhibited. So I've been in very different verticals altogether. But the only thing that keeps me going is that when you have a strong purpose behind what you're doing, that why is so strong, you end up putting your best. Success is what follows. So I think that's one thing that I've learned even with Mamaearth. The reason that my son was going through certain problems and I wanted to solve that problem for him, that purpose was so strong, that at any point of time when things got difficult, giving up was not an option because we could see him right there, right? And that is what pushed us to just be at it and build something out of just a pain point that we had and solve it for other parents. So I think that's one thing that I live by till date.
So, and of course, it's not easy. And as Vineeta flagged, there's a complete disparity between access to venture capital funds. Women are not able to access capital in the way that men are. Women are also sometimes diffident and shy about asking for money. And it hasn't always been easy for any of you. And Vineeta, I want to go back to you because, you've spoken about how when you started off, you used to live in a tiny flat. It would frequently flood. You took to running marathons to help sort of keep calm. Talk about some of those tough moments that you look back at today. You can laugh at them today, but I'm sure they didn't feel funny when you were going through them.
Yeah. So, after getting rejected by a lot of venture capitalists right out of Ahmedabad, our first business was like to launch a women's lingerie brand and sell it online back in 2007. And everybody questioned the idea of trying to build a brand. This was like literally 15 years back. So after many rejections, we decided we'll bootstrap. And when you bootstrap your company, it's hard because you have to manage the cash flow. You can't take decent salaries. So I remember my first 2-3 years, we used to be able to take start with 10,000 rupees and then went up to 25, 50,000. And living in Mumbai was hard. And I remember being very, and my parents were well off. They are upper middle class, but I didn't want to take money from them because they'd already funded my education, which allowed me to take that big risk because I didn't have a big educational loan hanging over my head. And it was actually not a very tiny flat because, I mean, at the end of the day, we come from a place of privilege, but compared to how I grew up, it was like in Bombay, they have this concept called 1 BK, bedroom kitchen. There's no hall. It's not a 1 BHK, it's a 1 BK. And then, of course, again, the whole water flooding is a bit of an exaggeration. I think, there's been a Chinese whisper there that's happened, but yeah, there used to be water leakages. But in Bombay, it's
I mean, which house does it have I think Hrithik Roshan shared a photo of himself in his balcony sitting with his mother, and there was seepage on his walls, and I said, well, sealant is universal.
I agree. And I used to actually not mind my flat at all till my friends once came over and said, this is more like a chawl than a flat. And I remember feeling like pretty bad about it that day, thinking that like I really did my internship with a bank where we used to live on Wall Street and have like the best access to everything. And and of course those were the times where the business wasn't doing too well. Bootstrapping is really hard, and I used to run a B2B business. And when I used to go to pitch to these HR managers, it used to be very hard because they wouldn't take me seriously. I really have been to conversations where I've tried to gray my hair and go into it to be taken seriously.
Oh, really?
And my co-founder would be somebody who is 13 years older than me. So they would just want to talk to him and not to me, unless it was, of course, there was an ulterior motive there, etc. So I really thought, and by the way, probably I just suck at sales, which was also my realization, never to run a B2B business, because it's just,
but hang on. You're basically saying that because you were young and you were female, that was a double disadvantage.
It was back in 2007 to 12. It was, in fact, there was, like when we launched this company as well, my husband, who's now my co-founder, was still working at McKinsey. So I had started up and he was still working with McKinsey, and he was going to join after a year. And I remember so many conversations where it was directly asked that, you don't have kids yet, you're going to have kids someday, your priorities will change. And there were, angel investors who were okay with saying that it has happened to us. There was a girl we invested in, and then her priorities changed, so now we don't invest in single women founders, and so we will only put in the money once Kaushik commits to coming on board full time. And I just, I couldn't say anything at that time because it was normal to say these things. But I remember thinking that I don't even want your money. So, but I mean, I feel that Ghazal's experience and Anoushka's would probably be a lot better, because they've probably raised in the last 5-6 years, and things have changed a lot. I think venture capitalists are now
horrified at the fact that, and you're absolutely right, that nobody would say to a man that if you're going to become a father, we won't give you money. Nobody would say that to a man. And I'm so grateful that you're flagging that. And Tanuja, I'm going to come to you and come back to Ghazal in a moment. But since we're talking about being too young to get capital, obviously Anoushka didn't have that problem. She's still in school. Anoushka, how old are you?
I'm 13 years old.
You're 13 years old, 1-3, and you have at 13 got 50 lakhs, and you've convinced these two ladies here, among other judges, because you came up with this idea for an anti-bullying app. How did this idea come to you for creating what you call Kavach?
So I've actually been working on the issue of bullying for the past 3 years now. And I've always been fascinated with working against anti-bullying, working with mental health, and also entrepreneurship. And I thought, after hearing so many different experiences of kids and parents, of older people, of victims of bullying, the one thing that I realized is that only whatever incidents are reported, then they can be resolved. So I thought, because of this, parents and students aren't able to report, and schools aren't able to receive these reports. I saw a need there. So I, decided to come up with an app. I decided to create a kind of like a mechanism that would allow parents and students to report their bullying incidents anonymously, and then schools to view those incidents, as well as also get information about the patterns and trends of bullying in their school, so they can take preventive action against it.
Are you sure you're just 13?
Last time I checked, yes.
No, of course I was saying that indulgently because, honestly, that is a fabulous articulation for a young teenage school-going girl. At Tanuja, banker to music, what's that journey about?
My father is Singh, mother is Gujarati, so I think entrepreneurship is in my blood. I did banking, got inspired with this whole thing of how do we bring in impact, and the whole music space, art space in our country. I mean, if you look at music education per se, it's so disorganized. Most of the schools don't have a curriculum in music. And, if you look at our counterparts in different parts of the world, how music is ingrained in every child's life and every adult's life, inspired with that is how the whole journey and the opportunity came up. As an entrepreneur, I also feel it's hugely scalable. We all know that music education can play a very pivotal role in the lives of a student, an adult, the whole left brain, right brain wiring and the impact. So that's how the whole entrepreneurship journey, raising capital, setting up your goals and dreams, and constantly struggling with addressing where is the TAM. So I think, so in all the pitches, but yeah, that's how the journey to build something which can stay in our country forever.
Yeah. How tough, Ghazal, is it for a woman to raise capital? I mean, Vineeta shared some very sort of extreme, but very, the extreme, because when they're articulated, they sound so blatantly sexist, but they're so true, and so many women have shared these stories. What was your experience like? What have you felt as a female entrepreneur? There are a lot of women who don't want that preface, but the fact is that women do go through a very different journey, and we just heard from Vineeta in the ways that she did. How has your experience been seen through a gendered lens?
So, Barkha, I consider myself to be the privileged one, to be very honest. I think at the time when I was raising funds, the investor, we heard a lot of no's, but none of those were because of me or my gender, right? So raising funds for the first time, Kaval supported us in his personal capacity. Kavaljeet from Fireside supported us from his, in his personal capacity to fund us, which was good. I still remember my first investor meeting. I was 30 minutes late because my son has just pooped. He was 1.5 years old. And being, fully into entrepreneurship, the two of us, we didn't have help. We were staying alone. But the fact that when I went to the meeting, he understood and he waited for half an hour for me to reach there, was that first positive push for me. That said, the journey in terms of raising funds has been easier for me. That said, I wouldn't deny that a lot of women go through a tough time raising funds. For that matter, one of very recent experiences when, I was I'm expecting again. So, I just shared that
Congratulations.
information with a set of people, and there is when I experienced like a gender bias for the first time, where a lot of people came back to me saying, now that you're expecting, you would want to take it slow. You might want to,
Yeah.
take a step back. And, it just like everything where I used to say that I'm the privileged one, things are changing, things are getting better. That was the first time when I felt that, okay, I am facing it despite running a business which is scaling, which is growing. Think about women who are just out there raising funds for the first time, or are actually in a situation where their business might not be scaling and are looking at raising funds. Things are actually very difficult for them. And you wouldn't ask this question to my husband, who's also my co-founder. Nobody
Yeah.
asked that question to him. So that was a big eye opener for me. And
Yeah.
also a push till date, which has been motivating me to work till the last day before I deliver. I think it's just going out there, setting an example that you don't have to prioritize your personal and professional life at different times. The two of them are supposed to run together. Till the time we are able to manage that, nobody should be in a position to ask questions like these to us, right? We will take care of ourselves, our kids, our business, our life. And I mean, that's how it should be.
Yeah, and I was just going to say to Vineeta that Vineeta, you thought that it would be better for Ghazal, but clearly this issue of pregnancy and this assumption that women will slow down, stop working, this interferes with women being able to lead and start businesses from scratch. And you've already spoken about your experience. What is the most sort of one example that never leaves you in terms of the kind of brazen sexism that you've witnessed?
I think the examples that I quoted are probably the extremes. I will give you an anti-example, in fact, in the context that Ghazal mentioned. So I had both my sons as well in the last 6 years. So both my, my eldest son is as old as Sugar. And the first time that, we had like sort of raised money, but for about 3-4 years, we hadn't been able to scale our business. So we launched Sugar in the hope that this would work. And I remember till the delivery, I was so scared of breaking that news to my board, because I thought that, I hadn't been able to do justice to their money yet. And I felt just so self-conscious that till the day one of our board members came and actually asked me that, are you pregnant? I actually didn't share that news because I just felt that they're going to, tell me about how I how does one have the courage to have a family at a time where they've not been able to return the money? Because when you take money from an investor, it becomes like this big moral responsibility. And I just felt like I'm not that person who would do that with somebody else's money. And I felt that guilt and that shame of being expecting. And at that time there weren't as many examples of women who had young children and running their business, and it was my first child. For me, actually, it turned out to be exact opposite, because our lead investor actually showed up at my house in about a month into the baby to see the little one. And he was, and he heard me trying to explain about how I'd got this support system. My mom was here. I was going to get back next month. And he said, calm down. Like, really, this is your, like, you don't have to prove that you're really ready to get back and do all this stuff just for the sake of it. It's, this is like a special moment, and it's okay. Do it, like, take it slowly and do it when the time is right. And he's been so supportive. So the next time I had my next little one, I actually, when the little one was 2 months old, I went to our offsite and I made our investors babysit the little one, and they were just so happy to have this little one around. And it didn't feel like anything awkward or anything that's holding women back. And so in my mind, my learning at that time was that a lot of times the guilt and the shame was in my head, because I didn't see any role models. Like, if I had seen Ghazal's story before mine at that time, I would have probably not questioned this, and I would have thought that this is okay.
Totally hear you, but now we have all of you as these role models for a generation that will follow. Tanuja, your experience with sexism?
Yeah, I think, just to add to what Ghazal and Vineeta have said, I feel when a woman entrepreneur goes out to raise money, and the dreams are very ambitious, saying it's unicorn, the belief of those dreams and the questions that come against this are very different. And the points that you all mentioned, that whether, first of all, baby, your career, so all those things, there's stereotype. Let's say, at least I have experience. I've done 2 rounds and I'm trying to do my 3rd round, and there is a stereotype of how an entrepreneur has to be positioned, their background, their education, those stereotypes are there. They say, if a woman is aggressive, when a guy is aggressive and a woman is aggressive, there are very 2 different perceptions that the world takes about that. So
absolutely,
I feel
those
there are stereotypes, definitely.
Yeah, those attitudinal stereotypes continue, but maybe a brand new generation is going to have a different experience. So Anoushka, you're 13. I don't know that, the fact that you came up with an anti-bullying app means that you're very cognizant of everything that's happening around you. What's your dream for yourself later? And do you feel held back sometimes because you're a girl?
Well, I have never really felt held back because of that. Like Vineeta ma'am said that, being young, being a woman for her at the time was a double disadvantage. But I see, for me, it's coming out to be a double advantage. Like, because I believe my generation and the generation right before us, which is actually part of the generation that have invested in me, they don't really, condone and understand these old age beliefs about women. And we have a more forward looking mindset. So to us, gender and things like this doesn't really matter. It's only opportunity. It's only, the work and impact. That's all we see. So, I mean,
and what do you want to do? What do you want to do going ahead?
Well, I've always had this dream that I really, really have to reach out to every single school in the world, every single child in the world, every single woman in the world, and like deliver my anti-bullying message and make sure there is a Kavach, which is basically like a virtual shield around every school and every single child, and really make a much larger impact.
And may you remain as unscathed in your life as you feel right now, full of hope and possibility. I'm going to give quick, very brief sort of last words to Ghazal and Vineeta. When I say the word shark, what is the trait you see associated with it in yourself? To you first, Ghazal.
Well, when you say shark, I associate it with being determined and being driven. And I think those two words would suit well with me, because I've lived by them till date.
Well said. Vineeta?
I would say always identifying the biggest fish, which is the best talent. So that's what I feel my job as a shark is.
Well, as I described you as women who swim with the sharks and run with the wolves, but actually if I had to say one word, it would just be bold. And if I had to add another word, it would say risk takers, because you're not scared actually to take a risk. And people who remain very safe, they have also, I'm sure, fulfilling lives in their own ways and on their own terms, but they're not sharks. So thank you, Ghazal, Vineeta, Tanuja, and above all, Anoushka. May you shine. Above all, may you shine. Thank you so much, ladies. And thank you for inspiring us. And may you continue to grow from success to success. Bye and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.